All right. Okay, we are back in open session. And Kathy, it does not appear that we have any public comment.
We do not.
Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda proposed by any of the board members? All right, then we will jump into the superintendent's report.
All right. I have for all of you just the student enrollment update for the 24-25 relatively soon to start school year. So Jonathan Hoffman, our data person, does a nice job just comparing the number of students in kindergarten last year compared to this year, school by school. The kindergarten enrollment, though, I will say, is probably the one that is likely still to change. We get a number of people that are perhaps leasing new apartments, condos, homes, whatever, and I anticipate that that number will grow. So you can see that data there. And then we also had, Joel asked if we had easy enough to pull together historic overview. So we do have a 10-year enrollment comparison around total enrollment and then school by school, right?
Grade by grade.
Grade by grade, yes. Yeah, there you go. If you're interested in looking at our 10-year history. So, and Joel, do you have any comments about that?
I can say the same thing that I said to you in Wesley an email, and thank you for pulling this together. This is perfect. And the biggest reason I was looking at it is because that 3-year number made it look like we were on this trajectory. And then if you go back to just the 10-year numbers, you can see that, yes, while we're a little bit higher than typical, there is the enrollment generally sticks within a set of guardrails. And so we've had discussions in the past about enrollment studies and how big are the schools and do we have enough classrooms, and it looks right now in a non-crystal ball look that we're still pretty reasonable. Yeah. And that was the whole point of that.
Yeah. And we've done a demographic study. I'd have to look up the exact year. It was just before we started kind of in earnest with all of our capital work. I want to say 2017 or 2018. I can look it up.
That sounds right.
And I think they tend to be sort of a 10-year projection, 10-year look. It's something that we could certainly repeat in the not too distant future. But the prediction was that our enrollment would stay relatively stable, give or take 10%. So
it was, and I'm going to throw, sorry.
It pretty much has. I mean, 2017 it was 1,630, and today we're projected to be 1,644. So, and it went down a little bit, went back up. So the stability, which is what you were looking at, seems to be there.
Barring any changes in residential development, these numbers will probably continue to fluctuate around some kind of base.
It should be noted, though, that dip was really around the pandemic, and it does make me wonder, obviously we've caught up, are there any additional catch-up effects on that?
Right, and did people just not come to school? Like, there was, I think, families that maybe didn't enroll their children in kindergarten because they would just wait a year or not do kindergarten during the pandemic.
Or do homeschooling or whatever.
Right, I think the pandemic had some impact. Mm-hmm. The other thing that, again, anecdotally is really interesting is we used to process a lot of new first grade enrollments, and to the point that we would run the student assignment algorithm in the same way we'd run it for kindergarten. Right. And the number of new first graders has significantly declined. I think it was about 4 when I checked a week or two ago. So I think sort of finding the stability with our kindergarten enrollment that is kind of reflective of a stability, and we always have some ins and outs over the years, but that's been very, very interesting. I know the board also asked about kindergarten enrollment, families requesting half-day, and there are currently 5 families requesting half-day kindergarten enrollment for the coming year.
Which feels about the same as this past year.
It feels like a little bit more. Like
a little bit more?
But 2, 3, 4. It's it's a small.
It's a low number.
It's a low number. Yeah. So, but yeah. Any other questions about enrollment? I also have a summer school update. So summer school started this week. We're off to a strong start, and primarily over at Blythe Park because of the construction going on pretty much everywhere else, it seems. And the Park District programs, Parks and Rec, are using the Hollywood School. So again, very strong start. increased enrollment. Again, this also feels kind of like a post-pandemic feeling that we're kind of back to something that feels more typical for us. So some summer, or not some summer, some fall, we've done sometimes a committee of the report deeper dive into summer school. I know there's been some questions about just different classes and the offerings and the opportunities for kids. If that is something that the board's interested in, we could certainly do that as a future committee of the whole. We don't do it every year, but we certainly can.
I will note, I guess, and I was pleased to see that overall enrollment is up significantly, because I guess for us, the timing didn't work out and we weren't able to attend as a result. That probably had a lot more to do with our early vacation, but that it was just something from an anecdotal story. Summer school didn't work for us, but it's good that it worked for a lot of other folks.
Any other questions about summer school? And then so I'll move on. The next is really more of an announcement that we'll have our Teacher Institute Days on August 20th and August 21st. So please consider this an invitation to all of you to join us on August 20th. So I think Wesley's going to come and welcome staff. So he will be there, but others of you have come. It's an opportunity to see our new teachers introduced, even though we'll share that information with you at a future board meeting. But it's a nice kickoff opportunity to come out here, Wesley, speak and welcome the staff. We are going to be at the Brookfield Zoo Discovery Center once again. That's, it's been a nice location for us.
We're going to do the baseball cards.
Good reviews. Yeah, there's going to be baseball cards for the new staff.
I really like that, so I'm looking forward to that.
So the zoo has a nice location, good parking, and a good lunch. So your box lunch that we're required to purchase. Anyway, in all seriousness, if you're available the morning of the 20th, that'd be great to have you there. And that is it.
All right, thank you. Could the board secretary please read tonight's consent agenda?
Yep. So tonight's consent agenda consists of the following. Minutes of the board self-assessment meeting from June 5th, 24, along with the minutes of the closed session from June 5th. The minutes of the regular business meeting from June 12th, along with the minutes of the closed session from June 12th. The personnel report as presented. The payables pre-list as of June 30th, along with the payables pre-list as of July 17th, and the consolidation district plan.
Okay, thank you. Does any board member wish to remove any of these items for further discussion before we vote? Okay, Kathy, could you please call the roll? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Kathy, could you please call the roll? He gave you an out. You're not gonna take it.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gahn?
Aye.
Ms. Kalick?
Aye.
Ms. Claps? Aye. And Mr. Merritt?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Okay, we are on to board member comments. It's been a month since we met. School's not in though, so I don't know if there was any comments anybody want to bring up. No? Okay.
Not been any performances recently.
No, have not. All right, old business then. First item that we have here is a resolution for approving some emergency work on the masonry project over at Ames Elementary. We had, well, what the resolution here is for $100,000 in additional costs due to some unsafe conditions that were not part of the original bidding due to, I don't know, Joel, maybe you can kind of explain this a little bit better than I will. I'm going to get my words wrong, so
In summary, we currently have a tuck pointing project at Ames School. And during that work, the contractor, in conjunction with after investigation by Ramesh and the architect, have discovered some areas that are in bad shape. They're starting to fall away from the building. There are areas that were not necessarily identified during the renovation work because they are in areas that we did not work in. Part of the reason this is being discovered now is because the contractor is up close and personal and literally touching the surface of the building and can see where things are failing. We have a resolution in front of us right now because the necessary amount of $100,000 is more than could simply be added by during the work. So to comply with open bidding requirements and
Because we're not doing it,
partially
because,
that.
yeah, emergency, because this is an emergency.
Because these areas are above entryways, as well as there's one spot where the wall is pulling away and could potentially fall, we need to address these areas immediately. And because the contractor is there right now, this is the best way to handle it. They already have the equipment out there, they have the materials, they have the skills, and so because it needs to be done before the beginning of school, it ends up not following typical bidding processes and needs to be an emergency procurement.
Thank you. So the short version is there's a whole bunch of really big blocks over doorways that are about to fall on people's heads, and we want that fixed. So,
Could potentially fall, and we need to address that
Yeah.
now, yes.
okay. So with that, is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve the resolution approving emergency expenditure of funds and change order for masonry work at Ames Elementary as presented?
For
Yeah, the
$100,000.
total, yeah, I should have reworded this. The total cost of this additional work is $100,000, and Vistara recommended that the Board of Education approve these funds. These repairs should be considered as part of an emergency repair that would alleviate an unsafe condition at the school and result in long-lasting repairs. MBB's contract will be increased to $447,037 even. So is there a motion to approve this as presented?
So moved.
Sorry, Dan. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Okay. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Kalick?
Aye.
Ms. Claps? Aye. Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
And Mr. Merhut?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, next up is the updated strategic plan scorecard.
So I can just add a few details here. So after our last discussion at the June board meeting, there were a number of suggestions and ideas. One was to make some added, share some added information about absenteeism and chronic absenteeism specifically. So you'll notice a change there in the 2.1, 2.1A under the report card. Then under Goal 5, there's some additions related to 5.7 and 5.8, and I think these are nice additions here, executing the long-range facilities plan. And so we went back to the goals we set out to accomplish related to long-term facilities work, that every school would have a secured front entrance, that we'd have a adequate space for all itinerant and student support areas, the right number of classrooms, and et cetera. The list goes on. So I don't mean to give any of those other areas short shrift, but you can all read it for yourself, and it's available for the public to look at also. So that's added and highlighted there. And then also the lunch program, the goal being having hot lunch at every school. So that will now be part of our report card, and I think it's nice to memorialize this really important work that's been added. And Don, under Goal 3, am I missing anything? We're going to kind of review our KPIs under Goal 3, and there may be additions and changes in the future. So any questions, comments, additions?
On 2.1A, can you talk to me about the school year 25 goal and how you came to that number?
Nor do you want to, I don't know if you could hear Selena. So the chronic absenteeism target number under
We set
two.
it as three-year, similar to the attendance goal. We set it at the 3-year average. So we took the last 3 years, the average,
the aspirational part would be that it would continue to drop below that 11%, but I think just trying to be realistic and having a formula for looking at the numbers.
So going forward, we should also expect the average, we'll just use the 3-year average in the coming years.
Right, yeah.
Got it.
Next one's supposed to be 3 years.
Okay. It doesn't strike me as an ambitious goal, but I understand how you came up with it.
Anything else?
And then we discussed this before, but and you said that Don's gonna spend some time on this, but I do think that around the culture and environment, revisiting goals 3, 4, and 3, 5, and making sure that the KPIs that we're looking for are meaningful and are actually real ways for us to track culture within the district are important.
Anyone else? Okay. Anything else you want from us?
No, that's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Let's see. So next item is to it's family and community engagement. What are we calling that? It's not a
Guidelines.
committee. It's a
The Family Community Partnerships
Group?
Action Team.
action team.
Mhm.
Came up with some parent. I don't know. We have some guidance that you would like an endorsement. It's not official vote, but just for us to review and comment and support. So do you want to give a,
Sure.
since you're in those
Sure.
meetings?
Yeah, so this is I would say a minor revision from the one that you looked at last time. So the board has looked at this at least one other time and shared that the family community partnerships really set out to develop a set of family-friendly guidelines, proactive, positive guidelines that can support families as they interact with the school district and with the community about the school district, et cetera. So the revisions since you last looked at it are really quite minor. One of the things we had talked about like an escalation policy about the importance of really encouraging parents to, when they have a question or concern, to really start with their child's teacher, who is often the person in the best position to respond or answer something. But then certainly, work with the principal or work with those of the district office if need be. And rather than set kind of a escalation policy or protocol, so to speak, we really just kind of stated it there that your child's teacher is your best point of contact for initial questions and concerns. So again, probably in comparison to the previous one, very, very little noted differences, but wanted to let you know that we've kind of continued to revise it a bit over the summer and looking at sharing this as we start the school year. Just met with the leadership team today, and I anticipate that families will see this as a link to communication that comes from me on our website, a link to communication and information that is shared by the principals in ongoing newsletters and information, but also shared at family fall parent night. We'll share it with our parent leadership team and have it distributed that way, and then we'll find sort of other groups along the way. But I think it's a nice document, some important work went into it, and I think I'm glad that the Family Community Partnership Action Team has done this. So again, like Wesley, you said, not a vote, but if the board has any questions, happy to answer those and kind of establishing it through support and direction.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I would just say, I think, I don't remember what I said at the last meeting when we first looked at this, but I mean, I just think it's good to have a reference document. There's nothing earth-shattering here, but just having thoughts organized in a reference document, I think, is always helpful. Any other comments before we move on? I think collectively we were supportive of it
Yep.
last time, so
Yeah.
I think we continue to be supportive of that now.
Thanks.
All right. That moves us into new business. So the first item here is a first reading of the fiscal year 2025 budget. So I'll turn that over to Mr. Fitton.
All right, thanks. Fiscal year '24 ended on June 30th, and what we're going to look at tonight is the fiscal year '25 budget, and it'll cover from July 1st this month through June 30th, 2025. it's a balanced budget, and we'll go into a little more detail here. As one of the policies that we reviewed in the last year, we need to show this slide, which presents operating fund balances. So the first column there is the numbers that came from the FY23 audit that we had a presentation on in January or February. At that time, our fund balance was 70%, so that I like to use the ones from the auditor. We're getting a third party to look at the numbers and kind of certify them. Now, FY24 just ended this past June 30th, and these are just our internal numbers from our ledger. They haven't been audited yet, but it looks like our fund balance will be 62%. And then the last column there is what we're presenting as the budget for the year that we just started. And we expect to end the year at 54% fund balance. And what's interesting, if you look at the bottom of the second and third, they're almost the same balance, but when you divide by the expenditures, we have higher expenditures in FY25, so that's why the percent drops. We're well above the policy of 40%. The timeline for this budget, this is the tentative budget, and we'll have a notice published in the paper and have a copy on display in the office and on the website. If people want to come take a look at it, in case there's a crowd, we might print out 2 copies so there's not a long line. And then next month, August 21st, we'll have our budget hearing, and then later in that meeting, adopt the FY25 budget. And the last couple bullet points there are the filing I have to do with the county clerk and with Illinois State Board of Education at those dates. The assumptions and calculations for this budget resulted in a 7.5% increase for revenue and expenditures when we compare it to last year's budget. On the revenue side, property taxes are 87% of the revenue budget. We calculated an expected 5% increase to what actually came in this year, which was better than budget. So we're going up 8% budget to budget, but when you see what came in, I use that number to say we're going to be 5% higher than that because of the last 2 levies were maxed. But I feel real comfortable it's going to go up by 5%, but in a budget, we use 3% to balance it. So there's a cushion about $600,000 there. On the expenditure side, salaries and benefits account for 70% of the expenditures. And with this IV, infinite vision system, we can run the payroll for the year. So you can be pretty accurate with salaries and benefits. Of course, when there's an open position, you make some guess on what you think will be paid and what kind of insurance, but it's pretty detailed. Each administrator met with us to go through their individual building budget.
Our people on Zoom are having a hard time hearing.
Okay. On the expenditure side, salaries and benefits account for 70% of total expenditures. And we ran the whole payroll for the year, so it should be pretty accurate. Each administrator met with us to go through their individual building budget or department budget. And we started with like a zero-based approach. Let's assume there's nothing in any of the accounts, and let's justify what we want to include. Here's another way to look at the tentative budget. The first column is where we expect the fund balance to be. Then we have the budget revenue and the budget expenditures. And there's some pluses and minuses in the different funds, but if you see in the blue there, the revenues match the expenditures. And we're not planning any transfers, which is that next column. We haven't talked about any new capital projects that would need to be in a different fund. Like, I think every year I've been here, we've had some kind of transfer to pay for capital. And then the last column is where we expect the fund balance to end the year. The planned operating revenues are 5.7% higher than the last operating revenue budget. And property tax revenue, of course, we hope we'll get that extra 600,000, so we'll come in favorable on that. To put this in a format that you're used to seeing it, and last year at this time, we projected the red fund balances, and the vertical line divides numbers that are in the books and will never change. And the ones to the right are estimated or projected, and of course, the closer to that's underlined, the easier it is to project it. So the red line shows in FY33 that we'll be spending, our fund balance will end up at 40% of the higher expenditures at that point. So I added the green line here with the adjustments for the audit that came in for last year, well, for FY23. A better estimate for FY24 where we have our internal numbers, and the new budget for FY25. And I haven't taken it out past, so I just move those same differences up. And when we get to our next projections, we'll be more rigorous on that. So you can see that the fund balance is going to be a lot higher than we projected, based on how last year ended and this past year. So it was at 40%, and now it looks more like 52% when we get out to FY33. This is the FTE, the full-time equivalent employees. If you look at the numbers in the bottom row there, for the year that just ended, we had budgeted 263, and next year, this year that just started, we have 276 or so. It's an increase of 12 FTE. We added the 3 ELL positions, 1 instructional coach position, 1 social worker position, and 5 paraprofessional positions. And the other ones are kind of offsets that are corrections. Somebody went from .8 back to full-time. So those 12 are the big numbers. Are there any questions?
In addition to that, we're going to have 1 more coach next year too, just that we need to prepare for. I think was the plan, right, when we approved. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just go back to that chart that models out to. Can you? Yeah. I'm sorry I don't understand this fully. Maybe I just need it explained a little bit to me. But like, when we're seeing this jump of $5 million, right, between the red line and the green line, can you just like very specifically tell me what caused that jump?
Well, our spending was less than budgeted, and our revenue was quite a bit more than what was budgeted.
Or was it?
Usually, I don't know exactly, but usually in our maintenance, we put a lot of money in the budget in case of something at 1.1 million we put in every year, and it usually comes in several hundred thousand favorable. We kind of budget for the worst case.
So like, if you split up that 5 million approximately, like into what amount came from excess revenue and what amount came from reduced costs? And maybe while he's looking for this, like, historically, is this common?
Yes.
This has been
Yeah, pretty.
very
We budget very
pretty much.
conservatively,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then we
And
always
it's-
have a surplus and we underspend in some of the
Right.
categories.
And is it normally along the lines of $5 million a year?
Pretty much.
pretty much, and it's been. I remember when I first came on the board, they were talking that we'd be running deficits year over year, but that's never happened. We've actually put in way too much. I mean, we've been putting in millions of dollars every year, and we're getting a little bit. We're making progress and sort of trying to become more in line with what to make it more accurate. I don't want to say accurate, but more realistic,
Less conservative.
less conservative. Yeah.
We were very, very conservative when I first got back on. And
Yes.
We've loosened that up a little bit. And I think one of the big things was just history. And then the other one was we knew we were going to be spending, I don't know what all this, it's going to be like $30 million, right? So
least,
we
yeah.
needed to bank a bunch of money. And so now we've had this because we weren't sure what other capital improvements. Joel's been trying to go through some like longer term stuff of like $1 million things that are going to be coming up, things like that. So yeah, it's been somewhat intentional.
So it was 2.2 million favorable in revenues and 1.9 favorable on expenditures.
In the 2 prior years. Is that what you're saying? The 2.2 and the 1.9 are from,
From FY24, my numbers on the year that just closed. So that's what I'm suggesting we'll be adding to the fund balance when the auditors are done.
And this is for 24, but a couple of things you noted in the larger document here was 700,000 in salaries and benefits for positions never filled, and special education tuition coming in 600,000
Yeah,
under
there-
budget. So I think it's kind of across the. It's not like one thing.
Right.
But the surplus is, I think, Dave, that's been one of your big things the last couple of years. Like that surplus has always been like 2-3 million each year, and then we also come in under budget, and so
Right,
that's
so-
been.
Right, and that's been something we've been, I guess, looking at. And to the point, the reason we haven't, because of all the expenditures that were coming down the line, especially capital, we've addressed that. So this is definitely an area, we've been very, very conservative over the years.
Yeah.
And we're getting less conservative, I'd say, since I've been on, but we still have a ways to go.
And I'm still budgeting the same way, but then we acknowledge that it'll probably come in a couple million favorable at the end of the year if everything, all the contingencies aren't needed.
And I want to say the initial price tag on this project back here was like $7.5 million or something, right? So once this is done, I think we probably can take some more assessments on kind of our approach and stuff like that. I don't think we have any like real big, no like millions of dollars of project, like individual projects that are coming. It's all bigger maintenance
Big roof
things.
projects,
Yeah.
maybe close to $1 million and boilers.
Right, but it should be, I do want to also point out, even though I know I've been sort of pushing to try to become less conservative in our budgeting, but I should also point out that we just embarked on, over the last few years, like a $30+ million project throughout all the schools. We never went to referendum for that. That's historic. I mean, that's monumental.
It's historic. We had historically high fund balances to start.
Exactly, but the fact that we haven't had to go to referendum for a $30 million project, I think is a testament to our financial stewardship with the money. So I do want to just make sure that we point that out as well.
districts vary, right, around the fund balance, right? This desire to have a certain amount of money in fund balance. And so this board also, not that many years ago, approved affirmed, right, a policy to not drop below that 40% of fund balance, which I think the philosophy prior to that had also been to keep a higher fund balance. And it also may have been in preparation for the facilities work that they knew was coming and was needed and is now almost behind them, so.
Correct, and the 40%, I think, has been, it's a good number, and the reason I say that is because recently the county was severely delayed in collecting taxes, and so we had a sufficient balance that let us ride out that delay in money from the county, whereas other districts were forced to take loans or otherwise try to tighten their belts to find money while they waited for property tax to come in.
And it's interesting you bring that up because I was going to ask you about the tax collection if we've had any issues, because I just read an article, and I wouldn't say it out loud anyway, but I can't remember what district it is, but they had that conversation at the board table about in the current environment of the county delaying. I think I don't remember what their policy was, but like they were at about 50% or something, and they just didn't feel comfortable going lower than that because of the delayed payments. Like, are we seeing delayed payments, or I don't know how that's.
They've been delayed, but we're getting it.
Yeah.
We're still getting over 99% of our taxes. They may be a month or two late.
So there's two issues here. One is the county, because of various tax and assessment issues, took longer to issue the property tax bills, which then meant the bills
We're
were
due
paid
later. Yep.
But then there's also the collections issue itself. And collections, Jim, I think, and I'm not holding you at any specific percentage, but generally it's something like 97% of property taxes property taxes billed are actually paid. And so we're always a little nervous, perhaps yes. And now in different economic conditions, people may have a harder time paying those things. So that's also something, it's minor, but it's out there.
So I don't want to infer anything around your question on your behalf. Was there something else you wanted to talk about or something?
This is my first year taking a better look at this, and so just understanding how we're coming to have a surplus and just understanding a little bit more about how historically the board has philosophically viewed having this surplus is helpful.
Gotcha.
I think I gathered enough there.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Anything else from you?
No.
Any other questions from us? All right. Thank you, Mr. Fitt. The other item that we have on here is a consideration of a stipend MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that we received from I guess just part of our process. So part of our REC contract, there's a section in there for stipends of extra things that we put compensation behind. And there was each part of that contract, each year we look at those, and there's a committee between the district and REC that look at the things that are on there, shift things around if needed, et cetera, and we have not met, we didn't meet committee to the whole for the July meeting, so this is our first meeting since that conversation has been, and we've been able to, it's been brought to us. We discussed that topic in closed session this morning, but part of our process is we don't vote on any standard would be we don't vote on items that come to the table the same day that we discuss them, just so that we can all go back and consider the information that was brought and our own opinions and all that stuff. So we are going to table this. It was put here just in case, but we are going to table this for the next meeting in August, and we will take action at that point in time. So no further discussion on this particular item needed. Looking around, and I don't see any additional public comment or anyone here for public comment. Kathy is, I'm guessing, nobody? Yeah, okay. So with that, we have no other topics, and future meeting dates will be August 7th, 2024. Committee of the Whole, 7 p.m. at the multipurpose room over at Hollywood School. August 21st, 2024, regular business meeting here, 7 p.m. in the Hauser Learning Resource Center. Those are the only two listed here. And that is it, and this meeting is adjourned.